This week on Worldview, as the government builds its international narrative post-Operation Sindoor, how high did political diplomacy score? Dozens of MPs that visited more than 30 countries abroad now return, so we're going to take a closer look at their mandate and whether it was mission accomplished. Hello and welcome. I'm Suhasini Heather and this is Worldview. Now, after intense official diplomacy during that 4-day conflict of Operation Sindoor, the government now fielded India's political diplomats. 7 delegations with 59 members, mostly members of parliament from across political parties, to 32 countries. They're now home or on the way. Now, such delegations have been sent in the past. In 1994, when Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao sent opposition leader Vajpayee and then former Kashmir Chief Minister Farooq Abdullah to the UN Human Rights Council to defeat a resolution against India, and they were successful. Then in 2008, after the Mumbai attacks, when Prime Minister Manmohan Singh sent all-party delegations to make India's case against Pakistan, they were armed with dossiers of Pakistan's complicity in the attacks, and they were successful in building an international consensus in favor of India and one to bring Pakistan to account. However, this is the first time that the Modi government has actually done the same thing, and that's possibly for a few reasons why in 2025 they decided to do it. The first, that while the world condemned the Pahalgam terror attacks, very few countries issued statements supporting India's operations against Pakistan, particularly visible or audible, I should say, from the neighborhood. Unlike in 2016 and 2019, when the Indian operations on Pakistan were short, this time the operations turned into an escalatory 4-day conflict. So alarm and concerns worldwide. Also the narrative that India had lost its fighter jets or its planes, something the government has now accepted, alluded to, but not fully clarified. That has clouded the military success of Operation Sindoor for the media abroad. The third, that the Modi government really has been under criticism internationally for a democratic downslide and for increasing majoritarianism within the country. So sending multi-party, multi-faith delegations counters that. India also wanted to counter the statement by US President Donald Trump that the US had somehow mediated to end a nuclear conflict between India and Pakistan. It's something he's repeated a dozen times, even though India has denied it. And despite India's pleas against that, international organizations continue to give Pakistan space. In particular, as an elected member of the UN Security Council, Pakistan was able to alter the resolution on the Pahalgam terror attack and to remove references to the Resistance Front, the TRF, that claimed responsibility for the attack on April 22nd. This month, Pakistan has been elected chair of the 1267 Taliban Sanctions Committee that looks at globally designated terrorists and is the vice chair of the Counter-Terrorism Committee at the UN Security Council. Now, even during the conflict, while that was on, the IMF cleared 2 separate loans for a total of $2.4 billion for Pakistan. And despite Prime Minister Modi meeting with the Asian Development Bank chief, the bank actually cleared $800 million in loans for Pakistan just in the past month. Now, for the missions of those delegations itself, the countries that were chosen were nearly all either members of the UN Security Council or about to be elected to it. China, in fact, was the only P5 member no delegation went to. A special focus, however, was made on the US, where the delegation spent a total of 6 days over 2 parts, and a special effort was made to speak to Gulf countries and to Southeast Asian countries who are members of the Organization for Islamic Cooperation that has been particularly critical of India, so it was important to address them. The message that these delegations took was threefold. The first was really the message of the new normal that Prime Minister Modi has spoken about as Indian policy now. One, any act of terror will be seen as an act of war. Second, that India would not bow to nuclear blackmail. And third, in responding, India will not distinguish between state actors and non-state actors. The second part of the message was that India, as a victim of cross-border terrorism, was justified in the Operation Sindoor strikes on Pakistan. And the third, that unlike Pakistan, India is a secular, pluralistic, democratic country with a growing economy.
So we have 5 political parties amongst my 7 MPs, and we would have had a 6th one if a lady hadn't dropped out at the last minute. We've got 3 religions, we've got 7 states. It's an incredible cross-section reflective of India's diversity, and yet we've come with a united message. So
we have nothing against the people living over there, but their government, their deep state, their ISI, their promoted terrorist organizations are indulging in terrorism, and Pakistan has become an epicenter of takfirism.
We are here to put our point of view. We are here to tell the world, not just the United States, but the world, in 7 different delegations in many, many different countries, that India has had enough. And just like countries like the United States have every right to protect themselves, have every right to take out terrorists, whether they're state-sponsored, whether they're non-state actors, India has that same right.
The national language of India is unity in diversity.
Now, the teams won many accolades for their efforts in many capitals. They met with leaders, ministers, parliamentarians, forcefully sent out their message to the public, but they also faced some challenges. They faced questions about evidence linking Pakistan to the Pahalgam terror attacks. And while India has spoken about a broad body of evidence against Pakistan over so many years, it is the specifics of the Pahalgam terror attacks that they're waiting for. The second question is about India's own record with regard to minorities, and then on Kashmir, and some questions in India about why these delegations spend so much time speaking to the Indian diaspora at Indian high commissions and embassies, speaking not to local but to Indian media at all these places who don't need convincing. In addition, Pakistan ran a copycat move on a smaller scale, if you like. One special advisor to Pakistan PM Sharif, Tariq Fatimi, took a delegation to Moscow. He met with Foreign Minister Lavrov. An opposition leader in Pakistan, Bilawal Bhutto, is leading a multi-party delegation to the US, UK and Belgium, Brussels, where the European Union is headquartered, and to the United Nations. So what was their message or their mandate? To call India's strikes as illegal in international law, to push for the restoration of the Indus Water Treaty, and to counter charges against Pakistan's terrorism or support of terrorism by accusing India of supporting the Baloch Liberation Army, especially for the Jafar train attack, and to play up the Panun Niger killings in US and Canada, where Indian agents have been implicated or indicted. That Pakistani delegation will be traveling until June 18, so we might see more of that. So what's Worldview's take? Given that countries around the world have faced terror attacks with some threat to Pakistan, India's task in justifying Operation Sindoor is not a very difficult one. And the impact of the MP delegations will, of course, be assessed over the next few months for results. The two-pronged task ahead of the government, however, is internally to investigate how the Pahalgam attacks took place and how the terrorists have been able to evade Indian forces, and externally to take India's quest to bring those terrorists to justice at the UN Security Council, the Financial Action Task Force, and at other international organizations. So a tough road still ahead. Let's get you some Worldview reading recommendations. And of course, you can get many more details about the delegations, what they achieved, whom they met on the Hindu's website, www.thehindu.com. But here are some books, many of them very recent books I hope you enjoy reading. One is called Pakistan Ideology, Strategies and Interests by former diplomat D.P. Srivastav. I haven't yet read this book. I hope to tell you more about it soon, but it's just out. He's also the author of Kashmir, The Other Side of the Line of Control, a lot of personal experience there. The second book, called Hybrid Rule in Pakistan, about the military-polity relationship by Zahid Hussain, a very famous columnist, very well respected in Pakistan. Fighting to the End, the Pakistan Army's Way of War, this is by Professor Christine Fair, and Vigilante Islamists, Religious Parties and Anti-State Violence in Pakistan by Joshua T. White, another scholar. There's a book on the legal ramifications. It's called Unraveling the Kashmir Knot, Past, Present and Future by Aman Hingorani, who's a mediator, and a book called Pakistan, the Balochistan Conundrum by Tilak Devashar, who has, of course, served in Pakistan as well. So we hope you will continue to read and make up your own mind. From the team at Worldview, thanks for watching.